I've told a handful of people what I'm about to tell you because I've been scared. Some kind of spirit has orchestrated some amazing messages for me, and as you can see, I'm still torn because, you know, I want to believe that it's a benevolent divine force that has orchestrated all of this, but I don't know, because I guess I don't have that level of trust yet. But I also believe that the fool believes himself to be wise, and the wise man knows he's a fool. And so I always try to keep it in my mind that maybe I'm wrong and maybe there's another explanation. So that's probably, I'd say, the main reason that I still will say that I don't know what's real, even though, as you're about to find out, when you add it all up together, it just seems incredible, and too incredible to be true almost. And so either it's true or spirit is playing a prank on me, which is possible because they do have a sense of humor, I guess. And so it all began in 2012 in winter, or Australian winter, so June. And I went over to my Aunt Anne's house to watch a movie, and she gave me a couple of options and I chose the other Boleyn girl, and we watched it, and at the end I was sort of exclaiming how much I found it so fascinating. And she said, well, if you like that, you're gonna love the Tudors TV series. And she lent it to me, and I began watching it with my mom, and just really, I mean, I've always been interested in 16th century England and France. Long story short, I was absolutely just entranced by the story, and especially Henry and Anne, and especially Anne. And you know, kept exclaiming how I felt like we had everything in common, the good and the bad, and I would have done that and I would have done that, but you know, but also just very emotional about it, and you know, not wanting to accept the end and not wanting to accept the outcome, and just very emotional, more than I would with any normal movie. And didn't really think much of it at all, just thought I was a bit of a sad loser, just you know, fantasizing about people and places that had nothing to do with me. I began writing in my diary for the first time since I was like a teenager, and the first entry that I wrote I called Nostalgia, which was ironic, and I ended up researching later that I'd been Googling the Tudors that day before I had this diary entry, which was very interesting. But I don't know, basically it awoke something in me. Anyway, over the months I began writing down on my to-do lists, get a past life regression. I'd never been curious about my own past lives before, and I didn't link the two things as connected. It just seemed random. And I I'd always believed in reincarnation, but never been interested in, you know, my own history. And then one day I was at work like about a week before Christmas. And I said to my boss, Jennifer, hey Jen, I've been thinking about getting a past life regression. And before she could say anything, you know, just at that moment, the light above me just flashed, ding, ding, ding. And we were in a store with, you know, lots of lights all over the store. It was just the one above me flashed as I said that. And we kind of looked at each other, just like, well, I think you should get that because I've never seen that happen. And all the years I've had this store. And so she came back, she went out the back, she came back with a piece of paper with a name and number on it, and she said, this is my friend, she's an amazing psychic, you could go to her, you know, she could definitely do a past life regression for you. So of course I made an appointment, and then 3 weeks later I went to see her in mid-January 2013, and it was one of the biggest turning points of my life. It was everything she said resonated, everything. And like she knew everything about me and all my friends and my relationships, and I felt like I knew her. I just instantly felt comfortable with her instantly. And you know, we'd had a life together. I think she said we'd had a life together about 900 years ago. We were in Buddhist monks together, but she said back then I was her teacher, so it looks like we've swapped roles. And yeah, so anyway, she's telling me, you know, I was in Atlantis, and then she was talking about, you know, me in ancient Egypt, and then Rome, a lot of male lives in Rome, which it all resonated because those three civilizations are probably the ones I'm most interested in: Atlantis, Egypt, and Rome. And I remember when the movie Gladiator came out, I just watched it over and over and over again. And so it made me realize that if you're really drawn to something, a particular time or place, it's because, you know, it's like there's a reason for it. You were most likely there, or definitely there. And anyway, and then she just goes, oh, and you were part of British history. And she goes, oh, you know Henry VIII? I'm like, yeah, because it's like I've, you know, really been, you know, after I watched The Tudors, I went onto Wikipedia and just read everything I could about them to see how accurate it was. And well, according to Wikipedia, it's the TV series is accurate, but I now know that Wikipedia is not reliable. She goes, well, she didn't say it like that. She kind of looked sad, and she kind of looked like she felt sorry for me. And she just was like, you were Anne Boleyn, like, you know, sorry to bring, sorry to tell you. And at that moment, I experienced something I've never experienced before. Every cell in my body was like I got electrocuted with goosebumps on steroids. It was just every cell, it felt like every part of me just screamed, I knew it, like, you know, and my mind was just flooded back with all these memories of, for example, when I was 8 years old and my dad took me to the Tower of London on a family holiday to London, and I just remember looking through the jewels and just thinking, I wonder which one was mine. Like, you know, just, it was so familiar. And I'm sure a lot of children think these things, and I never thought about it again. But after she told me that, it really reminded me of how deeply it all felt so familiar, and how I seemed to, like, I loved London, and how easy it was to me to, like, I remembered getting around there. And even though I'm sure it's very different now, but there was just a real familiarity. I remembered how, you know, just all the nightmares that I've kind of had my whole life, there's a certain theme of, you know, dreams that just disturbed me, and there didn't seem to be any reasonable explanation, because I've never had anything like that happen to me in this life, but in my dreams it was just, yeah, so much fear. Anyway, so what else? And yeah, it just reminded me of all the things I've been thinking and feeling since I watched the show, and it just felt like, oh, like that explains a lot. Like it explains the themes that I'm still working through, because after she told me, you know, you were Anne Boleyn, she said, and her lessons are your lessons and you haven't really learnt them. And you know, you've been female over and over again for so many lives, and you've really been in this cycle of disempowerment, and now it's time for you to step out of disempowerment and to step back into your power and break the cycle. And I remember getting out of the appointment and just getting in my car and bawling my eyes out. So I just felt so sad for Anne, or for myself, or I don't know, it was like I realized her pain was my pain, and I just cried and cried for her. And then as the weeks rolled on, I just started to doubt it. I was like, nah, how can you believe what a psychic says? You know, like I'm not going to believe it unless I have a memory of it, you know. And so yeah, I was very open to it, and I suspected that I might be her, but there was no way that I was going to believe it. I simply put, I needed more proof. And then fast track to September of 2014. So I think in June or July 2014, I left Australia on a one-way travel adventure. And I went to Europe first, and I went from Istanbul up to London, a city that I was excited to see because I hadn't been there since I was 8, and I was 27 at the time. So it had been almost 20 years since I'd been there. And I went to Tower of London, and I walked into the chapel where she's buried, and it was just me in there and 2 other women, and the women were up the front talking to the security guard, and I just quietly sort of walked in. They didn't notice me, and I just sat down and was sort of just listening to what they were saying as I was taking in, you know, the beauty of the place. And I heard them say that still to this day, someone sends flowers from France anonymously on the anniversary of Anne Boleyn's death on the 19th of May, today. And I thought, what? Someone sends flowers still to this day from France anonymously? Like, who would do that and why? It just made me feel like there's a piece of the story that's missing that we haven't been told. And I just remember, you know, putting that away and thinking, okay, like, that's strange. I guess, I don't know, didn't really think much about it. I just figured, yeah, there was something else to be discovered. And then I went to Hampton Court Palace, and I walk into the courtyard with my friend Amy, who was my amazing tour guide. And as we walk in to like almost the middle, we see a man who looks just like Henry VIII. And what I didn't know at the time is he's an actor, and they pay these actors to storm around in their, you know, full outfits, and, you know, and but it was just perfect timing, you know, because we just sort of walked him taking it, and then Henry storms in and he looks angry, like he's in a rush, and he's got his like right hand man following him. I don't know if it was like Wolsey or like Cromwell, but yeah, he was like sort of following him. And so of course, you know, my friend and I and everyone around just followed them too to see where they were going, and they led us into the privy chambers. There was like maybe 8 of us just sort of sitting around him, and I was scared. He was a really good actor, and he really looked like him, and it was an Academy Award performance. And anyway, and then you realise that they're discussing his last wife, and she comes in and she does a little speech, and all the while I'm just sitting there thinking, do you know who I am? My ego was like, yeah, as soon as I got near that castle, my ego did go. I was very like, you know. Then we go into the courts where they play tennis or whatever, and there's 2 people playing tennis in there, or squash or whatever they're playing, and I really felt very intense, felt intense in there. And I looked at this picture on the wall, and it said that because Anne Boleyn liked to gamble, and she was in here when they took her to the tower. And then all of a sudden, I felt like someone had just squeezed all the air out of the room, and I could not breathe. Like there was no oxygen in the room. So I went to turn to run out the room because there was no oxygen left. And as I turned around, it literally looked like the wall, like it was just closing down. Like it was the strangest thing, and I've never had anything like that happen to me. And I don't know, maybe I psyched myself out, but it just seemed like suddenly the walls were caving in and I couldn't breathe, and I just literally ran out of there, and that was it. And then we left. So that's what happened. And then the most amazing thing that has ever happened on this topic was what happened at Glastonbury tour. My friend Brad and I, so staying with Brad's family, and I told him that I really, really wanted to go to Glastonbury tour. I just knew that it was a sacred site that has been, you know, a place of pilgrimage for like the last 10,000 plus years. And so on I went up the tour, and I was careful never to look behind me because I wanted to save the view for the end moment when I got to the top. And so I'm meters away from the tower, Michael's tower. And as I'm walking towards the tower, I remember thinking, right, I'm going to walk into the middle, and I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to take it in. And I walked into the middle, I turn around, and before I can even like see anything, I just noticed straight away this really old man walking right towards me, and he was like in his 80s. But he was full of energy. Like he had more energy than I did, or anyone that I could see. He was just full of life and enthusiasm, and it's like he was a little child, and he had his walking stick, and he had his little cap on, and he just walked straight up to me, and he goes, "Isn't it terrible what Henry did to Anne?" And I'm like, and I just felt myself get really angry, and I was like, but also like just in shock that he just said that. And I kind of was like, come again? Like, I was like, did he just say that? You know, isn't it terrible what Henry did to Anne? Okay. And all I could do was just go, yeah. And a part of me was like wanting to be like, yeah, how dare Henry do that? And then the other part of me was like, wait, did he really just say that? And I looked behind me and I remember like thinking, is there like a poster of them? Like, is there some like Henrianic, like what? Glastonbury tour doesn't have anything to do with them. So it was a total random comment. But he was looking at me all like cheekily, like he knew something. And anyway, so I'm just standing there like this, just staring at him, like half expecting him to disappear into a cloud of smoke. I'm like, and he is just chatting away. He's just like, if you go that way, you know, he just knew everything about the area. He's just like, and down that town, if you go up that way, just, you know, obviously he's a local up for his walk up the tour, and he just was just telling you all this stuff, and I don't remember a word he said, and I really wish I do. I really wish I remember what he said now, but at the time I just was like, wait, did he say it? Are you sure? Are you sure he said it? But why would he say it? Well, why would he say it? Why would he say that? And oh my God, Henry's such a dick. And I was just like, and I just, everything he said in one ear, out the other, and off he went. He wished me a good day. All right, we'll see you later. And off he went, and I just stood there, and here's the craziest part. I just forgot all about it. I didn't sit and reflect. I didn't meditate on it. I don't even know if I told my friend Brad, like, I just forgot all about it. And it wasn't until many years later that I was seeing a healer who happens to be called Raven, who we were doing work together, and she was trying to teach me how to find the truth from myself and not always try to go to someone else to tell me the truth, and to learn how to feel the truth. And I suddenly remembered that, hang on, I feel like spirit is always giving me these amazing signs and like, you know, messages, and I just ignore it because I just can't believe it. And then as I was thinking that, I remembered Glastonbury tour, and I said, oh, I think, yeah, like, why do I need more proof? Like, that's amazing. You know, it's all well and good to, you know, have psychic messages, but when you go to a sacred site like Glastonbury and you walk into Michael's tower and a man says it to you at that time, isn't that like the most golden message from spirit? And I just, over my head. And then after I reflected, I thought, no, that's amazing. Like, and okay, psychics can get it wrong, but what was that? Like, what was that? That's right. So May 2020, I was like, it kind of, yeah, it would make me think of the whole, why did spirit have to tell me that I was Anne? Like, this is so annoying, to be honest. Like it's really annoying. Like, I just want to live a normal life. Like, okay, maybe I've never want to live a normal life, but you know, I want to live a peaceful life. I actually do. And it's just, it feels like just a head fuck. And maybe it's my own, probably it's my own fault for whatever, you know, for not believing it or not, you know, but it just feels like exhausting. Just this whole saga of like, am I her? Am I not? But that happened, but this happened, but what about this? And it's just like, oh, what is the meaning of it all? Like, I really was in that space of May. I was just like, okay, why on earth is this happening? What do I need to learn? That was it. What do I need to learn? I want to learn it. Want to be done with it. And that's when I started thinking about, yes, this particular thing that I was considering blowing the whistle on, but didn't want to get traumatized again or live in fear or put my life in danger, because I was thinking, well, Anne died, okay? Her husband cut her head off. Like, maybe the reason spirit told you this is so that you don't die again. Like, you know, you're trying to bite off more than you can chew. You're trying to, you know, okay, right, well, you created a new religion and now you want to give the money that you've sapped from the Catholic Church to education. Like, I think that's just a bit much, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you can get your way sometimes, but just, you know, don't push your luck. Like, you can create positive change without losing your head. Like, I'm probably being animated about it now, but at the time I was not animated. I was in fear. Like, I was just like feeling, and this was some deep, like almost spiritual stuff. Like, I felt like that there were dark forces in my life that I could not free myself from, and that they had orchestrated this darkness in Anne's life, and that they had been around me my life, and I've had some really dark things happen to me in this life as well. And so it just felt like I was a prisoner of the dark. But in May of 2020, I was really, in the thick of it. It was just like, okay, like, am I doomed? Am I, it was like I felt powerless against the dark, basically, and worried about my safety. So that night of the 18th of May, I get invited to someone's house, someone I barely know, but I knew that they were a very curious person like me and probably had all kinds of interesting knowledge that I maybe needed, especially about like cults and I don't know. It was like this, it's like I wanted to get to the bottom of the darkness, or bottom of, I was just starving for answers, and this person just seemed like, oh, this person has got some answers for me. Like, there's something here, and that's, and it wasn't even in regards to Anne Boleyn at all. It was more about some of the other dark themes that I was curious about, so that I could feel like I was more equipped to take it on, like, know your enemy, So, so I go over to his place. We're just talking hours and hours and hours. And at some point that night, he sends me this video, and he literally said, "This will bake your noodle." And it was right, because this blew my mind to pieces in a way that nothing, I don't know, this is just a next level, like. So it's a video by Raven Moonstone, another Raven, and she's the cover of it is a piece of paper with the word truth written on it, with two Barbies holding it up, which spoke to me, because my business that I had at the time was all about truth and beauty, the beauty of the truth about beauty, as I used to be a makeup artist. And so it was like so calling to me, that even that image. And anyway, so I start listening to a bit, and after about 20 seconds, I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of know all this, not to be arrogant, but she'd written diagrams of like, the central banks connect to the Rothschilds, and if you dig under that, it connects to that. And it was sort of just explaining the power structure. And I was like, yep, no, she's totally, I get it. She's awake, but I kind of already know that. And I was feeling impatient. So I skipped to about halfway. I kept listening. I was like, yeah, I know all this. I skipped again to like maybe 2/3 the way in or something. And all of a sudden, I'll never forget this, she says, "And guys, I found the white rabbit. The white rabbit lies in Anne Boleyn's thumbprint bloodline." And I'm like, wait, did I just hear the white rabbit and Anne Boleyn in the same sentence? Because my business is like Wonderland themed, and people call me Alice, and I've been called the white rabbit. I'm like, hang on, how can it lie in her bloodline? Because her bloodline ended with Elisabeth, And she goes on to say that Anne Boleyn did not die, that she escaped her death, and she bred again, and she's got living descendants. who are trying to challenge the current royals and be like, you know what, we've got more of a claim than you do. And you know what, we'll create a world without interest and with gold backed and a free world. Like, you know, someone who like I totally like relate to, you know, with, you know, the whole understanding that, you know, interest is the slavery, you know. And anyway, not to go into all that, but it was just like, just to hear that she didn't die and she lived and that she had living, you know, descendants. It seems to make more sense than what we're told by history, which I wonder, is that why everyone's so fascinated about it? You know, after I heard that, I remember just spending, like, I was up till like 3 a.m, 4 a.m, just talking about it with him and just in shock and just talking about possibilities. And then in the morning, and I woke up and I looked out was looking out the window, and it was sort of just this beautiful view of the river. And it was like I woke up in a new world, you know. It was just like, and I was still in shock, and I just sat there like staring out the window. And I said to him, hey, what's the date today? And he goes, it's the 19th of May. And I'm like, and I just was, my body again, the goosebumps, was like, wait a sec, like, today is the anniversary of her death, and I find out on that day that she lived. It felt like a gift. It really felt like one of the most beautiful gifts. And as I say that now, I realize how much I've taken it for granted. I think if I woke up every day and reminded myself of that, I'd feel a lot better. You know, because it just made me feel like not to be so scared, and to realize that I am divinely protected and loved to a point. You know, don't push your luck, you know. I could still break my wrists, but, you know, and I'm not invincible, but it definitely made me feel kind of protected or loved, that I'm not alone. So that's how I felt. I was quite alone, especially with my family. Like, I have my mum's side of the family is like really different from my dad's, and I'm kind of in the middle, so I'm just total black sheep of my family. And always, yeah, almost feel like an orphan, you know, just not like an orphan, but yeah, like, you know, I feel sad at Christmas and Easter. And, you know, anyway, it's just, I don't know, I looked into Joseph Hallett, and it just felt like family. It felt like it was a reminder that I've got family out there, and soul family, and there's people out there who love me, you know. People I haven't met, well, you know, love Anne, but I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one. So it didn't look. I felt loved, and I felt faith. I think that's the word. So I haven't taken this off. I don't know if you can even see it here, but that's it there. Thank you for being you, and for being such a warrior of truth. And the truth, I think, always reveals itself in the end. And I think the best is yet to come.